I'm Zack Middleby.
I'm Tyler Sparks.
I'm Tyler Sifke.
I'm Sean Collins.
And our presentation is about natural hazards in Jackson, Wyoming.
This slide's about the introduction and our layout about how we're going to present our information. The first slide's going to include the summary of our location, which is Jackson, Wyoming. Our second is going to be the summary of geology and the geography of Jackson. And then we're going to talk about natural disasters that include avalanches, earthquakes, flash floods, landslides, and volcanoes. And then to wrap it up, we're going to have conclusion, acknowledgments, and references.
This is the city of Jackson. You can see how it's surrounded by numerous mountains. It's surrounded by the Teton Range, the Gros Ventres Range, and Snake River goes through. We'll talk about this later.
The summary of Jackson, Wyoming. The population is approximately 9,577, but it's growing. The time zone is the mountain. The average income per house is $56,605. As you can see, they don't make that much money per household compared to Ohio. Strong economy due to the high rates of tourism, approximately 3.4 million in 2012. Some of the tourist attractions is Grand Teton National Park, Yellowstone National Park, the National Elk Refuge, Snow King, which is a ski resort. They have a lot of ski resorts, Jackson Hole Mountain Resort, and National Museum of Wildlife Art.
And that's just a picture just showing how Jackson is surrounded by all these mountains and everything, how they're pretty much isolated from any civilization. Here's the scenery though. It's pretty beautiful, but there's a lot of things that can go wrong within the city if these disasters decide to take place. Summary of Jackson, Wyoming is continued. The climate is very cold most of the year. The summers are somewhat mild, they don't get too hot. The main global tourist attraction is, of course, Yellowstone National Park. Everyone knows of that. It became a national park in the U.S. after being signed into law by President Grant in 1872. Geologist named Ferdinand Hayden convinced Congress to pass this law once he was there and explored the area. 96% of Yellowstone is in Wyoming. Yellowstone's area is approximately 219,789 acres. It is 63 miles north to south and 54 miles west to east. And there's a lake within Yellowstone. It's 400 feet deep and has 110 miles of shoreline. This lake has an elevation of 7,773 feet and is the highest altitude lake in the U.S. Then there's Yellowstone Plateau with a bunch of mountains around it. Mount Washburn is 8,000 feet. The Middle Rocky Mountains is 9,000 to 11,000 feet. Eagle Peak is the highest peak, which is 11,358 feet. And Reese Creek is 5,282 feet. And pretty much most areas comprise of forest, 80%, and the rest is usually just grassland.
As a summary of the geology and geography of Jackson, first off, I'd like to give a description of what geology means. Geology is the science that deals with the Earth's physical structure, substance, history, and processes that act on it. And the geography is the study of physical features of the Earth and its atmosphere, and of the human activity that affects and is affected by the land. The elevation is 6,237. The area of Jackson is 2.95 square miles. Jackson is surrounded by the Teton and the Gros Ventres mountain ranges. Jackson is in the Snake River Canyon Basin, which is western Wyoming. It was formed by the Snake River, and that's where it got its name from. The Snake River cuts through folded thrust belts that are very visible.
Just a summary of geology continued. The Teton Range tells a lot about the Earth and what it's gone through. There's a lot of different rock layers that are clearly visible, especially with the river cutting through it. Like I said, Jackson Hole lays within the Snake River. Some of the oldest rocks in the mountains are found there. As the river cuts through, a lot of those rocks get exposed. 2.5 billion year old metamorphic rocks can be found there. Rocks in the Paleozoic era can be found in a region covered by water. Mesozoic deposits are also found signifying a transition between covered by the sea and the land, through like different time areas of the Earth, and the other time zones are also found there too.
This is the map of the Teton Range, just showing like where Jackson Hole lays and the mountains that surround Jackson Hole, and disasters that could actually happen if they were to occur.
And now we are getting to our first natural disaster, which is avalanches. An avalanche is a snow slide or a snow slip. It's a rapid flow of snow down a slope. Slide of rocks or debris behaving in a similar way to snow are also referred as avalanches. Could also be a rock slide. Avalanches can be described by their size, their destructive potential, their initiation mechanism, and their composition and their dynamics. Here are some of the causes, here are some of the things that cause avalanches, as in weather, more likely to occur after a heavy snowstorm. 24 hours following a snowstorm are the most critical times to worry because the snow is building up. The second one is snowfall. The snowfall is extra stress on an existing snowpack. 1 foot or more of the snowfall created the most hazardous situations. Anything over a foot will create more of an impact and more snow to cause the avalanche. Some snowfall is large enough to block highways and cause major destruction. Another is temperature. Snow is a good insulator. When snow is compacted together, it keeps itself cool, it insulates itself. Larger temperature changes have more effect. As in warm fronts they can seriously weaken the upper layer of the snow buildup. So if a warm front comes over after it was just cold, it can cause the snow to be weaker and then cause it to come down and cause the avalanche. The wind direction will blow up one way and down the other. When it blows up one way, it's called the windward, and when it goes down on the other side, it's called the leerward. Wind will move more snow on the leerward side, snow buildup on that side, and more prone to avalanches. Snowpack conditions. This is the most important factor. Knowing the history of the snowpack for that season can reveal clues about the slope stability. Conditions over season. Conditions can change over the season and even in a day. The weather can change in just even a day, and it'll cause the snow to weaken and an avalanche can occur. This is why they test frequently. The slope angle occurs on a 30 to 45 degree decline. Normally they measure it with an inclinometer or the eyeball test. The eyeball test is you have your ski and you hold it by its strap, and then you hold it on the slope to see what kind of slope it has. The slope orientation. Most avalanches will occur on a slope facing north, east, and northeast. Since the sun is at a low angle during the winter, the colder and deeper snowpack develops. The terrain, snow can accumulate deeply and quickly in these areas. Be aware, even if an avalanche occurs, it will leave the slope and trail weak for more debris to fall off. And here is avalanches that have happened near the Jackson Hole. And in the Jackson Hole, Wyoming, is 8% of avalanche deaths in the U.S. from 1992 to 2007. Here's a chart that shows all the avalanches in the U.S. Since 1913, there have been 77 avalanches in Wyoming. During the past 3 seasons, 10 people have died in the avalanche in the Teton Country, Wyoming alone. First avalanche was recorded in 1913. It's called Clarence Curtis. The Jackson Hole Mountain Resort has an avalanche migration program since it opened in 1965 to be aware and warn the people that if there is an avalanche, they can contact them.
Earthquakes. Definition of earthquake is the sudden slipping or movement of a portion of the Earth's crust. The Tetons are formed by about 4,000 formed thousands of 7 magnitude earthquakes. The first recorded earthquake was in June 25th, 1894. There's obviously probably, now that we found that there's been a lot more earthquakes before him, but that was the first one that was actually reported. A 2.3 magnitude was felt on January 27, 1976. They experienced a lot of little earthquakes, and eventually, a couple of times they'll get big ones, but for the most part it's just a bunch of little ones. Their earthquake index or their percentage is 538% more than the U.S. average. Jackson, Wyoming is 1.93, Wyoming is 0.38, and the U.S. is 1.81. The Teton Fault is the main fault, and it's considered a normal fault. This hasn't slipped in almost 5,000 years, but this type of fault usually occurs 800 to 1,000 years. It's 35 miles long, and if it slips and they end up having an earthquake there, it'll cut off water to nearly 3,000 homes. It'll be about 174,000 tons of debris. It'll cut off the power to 800 homes, as well as St. John's Medical Center. 400 people have to be relocated, and the damage could be felt 20 miles around. The airports could be damaged, like I said, the hospitals, etc. The plates are considered moving and colliding, so earthquakes, that can cause earthquakes from looking at the history.
And that's just a picture of the Teton Fault, how it's just colliding, how it actually formed, and what it is now compared to like what it was back then, since there's not too many earthquakes at this stage. Flash floods, this seems to happen a lot. They're not really like major in this area, but flash flood is a sudden local flood, typically due to heavy rain. Snake River has a tributary going through Jackson, Wyoming, and the Snake River comes mainly from the Rockies or the Teton Range, and where the elevation of this river is actually 8,927 feet, where it starts. Jackson Hole has only an elevation of 6,451 feet, so if there's enough snow in the mountains and everything, the water coming through there could be significant, and it could actually do a lot of damage to the area. The river traveling through the city is actually pretty much the same height as the city. So most precipitation is in November, which is nearly 3 inches. So if that water rises, it's going to cause significant damage to like the western part of the city, since the area is just straight flat. So there's nowhere for it to go, and the mountains and the hills are keeping it in. So there's really nowhere for this water to go. The only way is it draining out. And in the mountains, like I said, there's 10 to 15 feet of snow during the winter. And there's at least 5 feet in the valley, so the more and more snow you get, the more and more water, and they don't know what to do with it usually. Receives an annual average of 16 inches of precipitation. Flash floods continued. Jackson's surrounded by waterways, such as the tributaries, like I said. There's lakes surrounding them. Flat Creek is the main reason for the flooding usually. Damage to buildings, houses, and even the land, and causes destruction. Roads get blocked off. Once the flooding occurs, water really has nowhere to go, like I said. Mountains that is back to the sides, and in the front is just grassland, so there's nowhere, it just sits there pretty much. Rain and flood can cause other natural disasters such as avalanches and landslides in the area, and there's really no way they can prevent this from flooding from happening. Now landslides, sliding down a mass of earth or rock from a mountain or cliff. Avalanches commonly occur in Teton Range, Snake River Canyon, and Ghost Ranche, where snow or rocky roads in massive amounts. And the biggest avalanche and landslide was in Ghost Ranche. It was like 1935, where it was 7 miles wide, and when the rocks came down, all the sediments, it smashed to hit the bottom, and it came back up 300 feet and like rising in the air. So it was a pretty big one. And usually it's caused total destruction. This can happen right behind Jackson. There's hills, mountains right near it. Like I showed in this first picture of the slide, there's just mountains everywhere. So if one was big enough, it could cause total destruction to the city if it reached that far. But there is usually loose sediment along the mountains, and the amount of snow the regions have, it can cause that. Usually the snow starts to melt, or when loose rocks get away, it starts like a domino effect pretty much. More and more just keeps coming after one little piece falls. Recent landslides have shut down roads for days pretty much. Only roads in and out of Jackson, there's only like 2 or 3 that go in and out. They're pretty much isolated from any major town. They're surrounded by massive mountains, so if one, like I said, if they want to come down, it comes down. Big enough landslide can destroy all of Jackson. Great amount of snow and loose rock soil in the area that can lead to landslide without warning. No way for Jackson Hole to prevent it from happening. And right there is the Snake Out River Canyon, where one road's cut off completely from a landslide.
This is Old Faithful. As we've all heard, Yellowstone has the largest volcano in the world. It is very prevalent, but not as much of a risk as many scientists have let on. Yellowstone volcano has not erupted in 70,000 years. It's predicted to erupt every 600,000 years, and so there's a slim chance that it's going to erupt here anytime recently. But if it did, it would cover 3 feet of the United States in ash, and that'd be from an ash cloud. It has only had 3 immense eruptions in 1.2 million years, and it would also, if it did erupt, it would send the Earth into one long winter. And the last time it did end up throwing Earth in the winter, it was 10 years long. Recently discovered that the magma reservoir is 50% more than first thought to be, which means they found that it's bigger than they previously thought. It has the markings to be a supervolcano. Yellowstone sits over a hotspot, and this is what causes Old Faithful to occur, is there's water sitting on top of the magma, and once the water is heated, it has no place to go but up, and so it causes geysers to erupt out every 90 minutes, which is Old Faithful's timing. The chamber that the magma sits in is 37 miles long, 18 miles wide, and 37 miles deep, which gives it the occurrence of being a supervolcano. It is said to be banana shaped underneath. This here's a picture of the magma and what the volcano would look like underground. Since it's not a regular cone-shaped volcano, this is the best way to portray it. It's mainly flat in Yellowstone. Talking about a mountain range, it's flat for a mountain range. Yellowstone is mountainous, but the volcano sits underneath, and so you can't see it rise or fall. This shows almost how it's spread, how here would be near the center, and how it works its way out. And talking about a caldera, that's what the volcano is mainly thought to be sitting in, is a caldera, which is where it erupted one time and left an explosion. And so to portray that, I kind of took a picture of Mount St. Helens, and the volcano exploded, and there's a big crater left. That's what happened in Yellowstone, and that's where it sits, because now it's surrounded by 2 mountains on each side. Go next slide. And that's what this is a very good indication of. Here, the hot spot, this is where the magma sits. And then here's the caldera sitting in the middle, and the mountain ranges on each side. When it exploded at once, it left a big crater in the middle. And this is showing how the crust is stretching away, and the magma is rising. And right up here at the top, which is where Old Faithful would be, the magma is coming up and heating the water, and then the water is heated and rises to the top. For a conclusion to our presentation, avalanches. Mountains surround Jackson, so there's no way of preventing it unless steel netting is put on the hill to help prevent avalanches. Earthquakes, tectonic plates are always moving and colliding in the area. Don't happen frequently, and if they do, they are not major, which means they're little earthquakes, which keep the major earthquakes from occurring. In flash floods, a tributary runs right through Jackson at the same elevation, so flash flooding occurs frequently, but not massive, since the amount of rain isn't enough to cause major destruction.
And for landslides, they can appear in an area due to large amounts of snow, loose sediment. If there's a drought, plants could die, and the roots holding all the sediment could give way, and that sediment can come down also. There's no way to really prevent this, since it happens so fast. You can't really time it or do any scientific studies on it to know when it's actually going to happen. For volcanoes, though, and if Yellowstone did erupt, it could wipe out several states, possibly the whole thing of America, all America. That's what they say. Jackson, Wyoming is a beautiful place with amazing land features and views, but natural hazards are everywhere that occur, and it could be fatal to the city if they occur at such a high magnitude. enjoying all of it. So thanks to our peers, table in class, and thanks to the internet, pretty much. These are references. Any questions?